Christ is risen. The Lord is risen indeed. Hallelujah. May I speak in the name of God, who is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Please be seated. There was a Sunday school teacher who greeted her class and asked the students if they knew what Easter was all about. And the kids all got excited. And I said, I know. And the first little boy said, Easter's the holiday when we celebrate the birth of Jesus and we remember the donkeys in the manger. And she said, no, that's not right. Good try. And the other little boy said, no, I know what Easter is. It's when we have turkey. And we think about the pilgrims that came and, no, that's not right either. And finally, this smart little girl in the corner, she said, I know what Easter is. She said, Easter is the holiday when they killed Jesus on a cross. And they put him in a tomb. And she went, finally, one of my students actually knows. And then she said, and if he comes out and sees a shadow, you get 3 more weeks of winter. No, that's not it either. Do we really know what resurrection stuff is all about? We just like these Sunday school kids who each year ask the same questions about this story of Jesus, about the cross, about the tomb. I guess I kind of made a mistake this week. I discovered an old, my kids had saved all my computer contents on one of these tiny little discs. And all of a sudden I found my sermons from Easter Sunday 2002. And being the overachiever I was, I preached 4 on that Sunday. I was out of my mind. So I have all these sermon pieces, fragments in my head where I was trying 20 years ago to make sense of the story of the gospel and the resurrection. Interestingly enough, on a day when a guest has joined us from Pennsylvania named Catherine, 20 years ago today, I baptized my daughter, Catherine, in our worship service that Easter Sunday. So it's funny how there's like a full circle. God smiles and laughs occasionally and taps me on the shoulder. I hope he does that to you too. So much has changed in me since I was a little boy running around the campus of Mars Hill College, now Mars Hill University. I still can't get used to that. All my stuff is NHC. For those of you who studied with Mr. Babley and Mr. Presley, and they were my neighbors, actually. Amazing musicians. The music program at Mars Hill is just one of the best. Still is. To think that I've gone from there to here in Shelby, and my little Catherine is a sophomore at NC State. How life does fly by. And yet, we gather around the world celebrating the unchangeable truth of the story of the gospel. The story of the resurrection, which I proclaimed 20 years ago in that little town in Virginia, has not changed. And so today, around the world, from Rome to Rio, from Kiev to Karachi, from Shanghai to Shelby, we will all pronounce and proclaim the resurrection. Hallelujah! Christ is risen. The Lord is risen indeed. I went and visited a couple of folks in the church last week, and I told one of them this story, and he chuckled. So I said, well, I think I'll say that to them on Easter Sunday. It was a story of these 2 men. One was digging a hole, and the other man had a shovel, and he took the dirt and he put it back in the hole. Good civil service, I don't know. Sometimes I see a lot of guys on the side of the road driving up toward Asheville sort of leaning on shovels, and I wonder, something like efficiency. But this fella, he's watching me dig the hole, and the other guy fills the hole up, and he said, I can't take this anymore. I want to know what's going on. So he goes up and he said, what's happening, guys? And he said, well, I dig the hole, and Bobby fills the hole, and Tommy took the day off. He's the one that plants the tree. And you know, when you think about Easter, if the main ingredient of Easter is not present, it's as ridiculous and as stupid and meaningless as a guy digging a hole and another guy filling the hole with dirt. You're just passing the time. You're just going through the motions. And to the outside world, to the people who have no faith or perhaps modest faith or faith in another religion, they look and they say, that doesn't make any sense. That seems crazy. Crazy as a guy digging a hole for no reason. It's the central ingredient of Easter is this story of resurrection. It's important that we get it right and that it stays in the heart of our faith. And so the empty tomb is something you'll always get if you're anywhere near me on Easter Sunday. I remember a long time ago, I started my sermons on Easter every year. And I said, if you come to this church to hear somebody speculate about how Jesus didn't rise from the dead, you're in the wrong church. I'm like, oh dear. I thought you were progressive, Father Kris. But it's the central piece of the story. And it's difficult for some people, perhaps even radical, maybe even a little strange, to live in a world thinking of truth, thirsting for peace, thirsting for hope. For some, the thought of an empty tomb is nothing more than an empty promise. But I'm here to testify that the truth of the resurrection changed my life. And it changes my life every day. We try and make sense of it in a different way. I love history, and I'm sort of fascinated by the folks who sailed the seas back in the 18th century, kind of a precarious thing on these wooden vessels, sailing around and not really knowing what was out there. And there's this really fascinating story I bumped into about an old ship that was sailing off the coast of South America. And their mast broke. And there they were stranded in the ocean, not knowing where they were going, and they thought they were all going to die. And of course, you're out in the middle of the ocean. What's the first thing that happens? The sun's beating down on you. You become thirsty. Very, very thirsty. And there you are in the middle of the ocean. And yet you just want to drink some water. And they thought they were going to die. And one day, after they'd been bobbing around for a long time, he just took a bucket and dropped it into the sea and pulled in a bucket of ocean water. And he decided, I don't care, I'm just going to drink. And he took a drink. And lo and behold, it was fresh, pure, delicious water. He couldn't see land. How could this be? And all the other members of the ship, we are told in the journals I read about this vessel, they immediately drew water in from around the boat and they began drinking the water. Sure enough, it was pure water. It was not salt water. They were about 12 miles off the coast where the Amazon spills into the Atlantic. The power of the Amazon is so great that it pushes fresh water almost 15 miles into the sea. And there they were, thinking they were going to die of thirst while sailing in a boat in the middle of fresh water. Does that not sound like the church? Here we are sailing in an ocean of thirst-quenching grace and love from God Himself, and we dare not to stick our bucket off the bow and draw in some life-sustaining, hope-filled water. Perhaps that's the message we all need to hear today. To dip your bucket right here at Ascension Church or wherever you call home. Dip the bucket of your faith into the life-giving water of the Lord's resurrection hope. And invite others to come and join you. There's a hurting world, and the message they often see from the Christian church is a message of judgment and division and difficulty and arrogance. Be the people of Jesus, the Jesus who ate with tax collectors and sex workers, with the sick and the lepers, the Samaritans. Be that Jesus who exemplifies love wherever you go and welcome. So some random notes from those 20-year-old sermons provided me with sort of interesting facts to ponder throughout this week. Ponder my own faith, my own hope, the source of my own life and purpose. And I grabbed one thing out of one of those sermons from all those years ago. It was from learning about the Titanic. I think maybe the movie Titanic had come out back then. I'm not sure how long ago, but for some reason I was fascinated with the movie Titanic and with the story of the Titanic sinking. And I came upon an interesting note, and I preached it in that sermon back in 2002. And that was that the explanation given by the folks on the bridge as to why they hit the iceberg. They said they had left the binoculars for the bridge in Southampton. That was the story they gave. But as I was reading a little bit about the history of the Titanic, when they went and explored the wreckage, they found a safe behind the bridge room. There was a safe locked. They went into the safe, and guess what they found? The binoculars. They're on the bridge using their eyes because they don't think the binoculars are there. Imagine if they had gone and gotten the binoculars, maybe they would have missed the iceberg. Sometimes the gifts we need are right here in our midst, and we fail to see them. Or, worse yet, we keep them locked away in the vault. The gifts that God has blessed us with. And so I'm going to summarize this way. So tell the story so that all may know and not think that today is just Groundhog Day. This is not a day when Jesus sees his shadow, but it's a day when the Son of God casts a shadow upon the earth. Make sure that the central ingredient of our faith is the risen Lord. And make sure that it's planted in your heart so that Christianity can always have an empty tomb, because that's the Christianity that makes sense. Dip your bucket off the side and drink in the water of life, because God will be an ever-present help in times of trouble. And don't forget to look in the safe, to see what's there. God has blessed us with gifts so that we can avoid icebergs and the things in life that might sink our ship. If we take those things out of the safe and put them to good use, there's no telling what God will do. That's funny. I don't know why I made this note, that Jack Daniels died from an infected stubbed toe because he kicked the safe after he forgot the combination to get inside. Because he forgot the combination, he ended up dying of a stubbed toe. Why that's at the bottom of that sermon, I have no idea. Maybe it's a reminder. Figure it out before you get so frustrated you stuck your toe on the safe. It's such a blessing and honor to be here before you. I'm always humbled. Any minister that stands before you who gets to proclaim the risen Christ, it's a humbling thing to know and to love Jesus, to walk and try and serve him every day. It's a humbling thing to stand before you with the great honor and privilege of just proclaiming that he's a risen Lord. And so I'm honored to be here, and thankful and grateful in so many ways for so many things. Hallelujah. Christ is risen. The Lord is risen indeed. Hallelujah.